Jaron, like, you've grown up in the States, you speak Spanish fluently, you live in Mexico City right now. I know you've lived in other parts.
Mhm.
I think you've been to El Salvador. Like, where else have you lived in the Latin world?
El Salvador, Panama for a little bit. I go to Colombia every now and then for extended trips, like 2, 3, 4 weeks maybe.
Yeah. Um, can you give them a little bit of a like a sequence of tips that they can follow that might be a little more useful than sending money to random people in Ukraine or wherever? From your experience, because I mean, you do really well. Like, you're
Mhm.
in a group chats. We talk privately. There's a lot of stuff going on in your life, with the senioritas, and without giving away, too much. You're a G, as they would call it, right? Sort of thing. So,
Mhm.
what's the deal, for guys like that?
Yeah, first and foremost, and Rich, you alluded to it earlier, coming into the top of the stream, that if you can't get girls at all in the US or your country of origin, then you need to figure that out first because you're not going to help yourself going abroad. Yes, you may be able to get girls, but a lot of time they're going to be the lower class or they'll be the paid type girls, or they'll fall into this trap because this guy doesn't see this stuff coming. You could tell when we freeze framed his face that he's like, oh no, what is going on? Because he doesn't have that experience. And in the US, I know a lot of times we throw around the idea that girls can be ruthless, but when you go to other countries and there's a large discrepancy in terms of income, they do things that they wouldn't do to the local guys or guys that they actually respect. So that's the first one. Try to get in your reps in the US or Canada, wherever you're coming from. I always say it is a bit easier abroad. That's because that they see you as a little higher SMB, but if it doesn't really matter. If you're a 2 in the US, it doesn't really matter if you're a 3 or 4 abroad. You're still very, very low
You're very
SMB and
low.
you're going to have that experience. And the girls are usually higher SMV abroad, but you have to realize that, especially if they're more from more traditional countries, they are going to detest these beta type guys even more than the American girls do, because
Right.
these foreign girls don't know any better. They not only is she playing him, but it's largely likely that she despises him, and she and her friends probably sit around and make fun of him and ask him for more money. And the reason I say that is every now and then I'll come across girls here that try to do the same thing. So I have certain rules in my life that there's no money involved, no talking money, no going out, not even any dates until we've been intimate, and it has to be genuine burning desire. At
I was
that
going to
point,
ask
then
you.
yeah, I'll start taking them out.
I was going to ask you, have you ever heard any feedback from women that have dealt with like dorks like this? That like, have you ever dealt with a woman that's like signed up for one of these match sites, or they've had expats try to come to them to meet them, or they've been picked up by? How do they react to them? I mean, do they just look at them and be like, "You're low value. Why are you here?" Sort of thing, or
I'm trying to think. I haven't dealt with women that have done any sites like that. I've dated a handful of OnlyFans girls here, and one of them we got into it recently. I might interview her on my channel at some point, but
mm,
she's she's a really sweet girl, and she really thinks that she's helping these guys. And I told her, like, no, like you ruin these guys, and these guys come to guys like me, you or Moff, and we have to start putting them back together. But she's a sweetheart. She thinks that she's really doing a good thing. Another one that I dated recently, she was an actress years ago for a reality show down here that was pretty big. So she already had a following, and then she makes pretty good money on there, but she's irresponsible with her money. She falls in the camp of where, yeah, she thinks they're pathetic. It's
mm.
just a money maker for her. It affords her lifestyle and gets to send her on trips. And whatnot. But that's what, and that goes in general, like any guys that are into like red pill type ideas. We have the alpha Fs and beta bucks equation. Well, that still exists. It's just existing through different platforms and different channels. This guy that sent 40K, he obviously falls in the latter, the beta bucks category, and we can see that. So the rules still apply abroad, but there's different things to
let me
take into
just
consideration.
let me just talk about the correct way to do it. This is
Mhm.
my friend George Gammon. Loaded, has lots of real estate, has a place in Medellin. This is how you geolocate, and you get what you want where you go. He's obviously having a good time here in Medellin for Halloween, dressed to the nines, nice arm candy with him, and hanging out with some cool people. Like, this is the correct way to do it. Money, like, you've got to have money, you got to have the looks, you got to have game. It's not like you get on a plane and go somewhere and all of a sudden your status goes from a 2 to like a 12. It doesn't work
No,
that way. I think
it goes
that's
from
like
like a 7 to an 8 or a 5 to a 6.
it's like a 7 to a 7.1 maybe.
And the
Depends.
girls go up a point or two as
Yeah,
compared to
for
American
sure.
girls.
For
So
sure.
for me, I notice my status goes up a bit, but the girls' status, like say my status goes up 1 point, their status goes up 2 or 3 points. So now I'm dating girls that are higher quality, but they perceive me as higher quality, and I think that's the sweet spot to be in.
Yeah. You got a few other tips for these guys while we're on it?
Yeah, another big one is this guy was saying a lot of times, and Rich, you nailed it too. Oh, cheap hotel, or oh, it's $2,000. Oh, I got to work really hard. I screwed this up like the first time I went to Colombia, where I went out and with the exchange rate, this girl I was with, she was beautiful, and I was saying things like, "Oh, wow, this is so nice, it's so cheap. Oh, I could really get ahead here." They don't want to hear that stuff because she's making like $400 a month working some really stressful corporate job, and for me being like, oh, we're going to a fancy dinner and it's $40 for the night. Well, that's a tenth of her income. And me bragging about it, saying, oh, it's so accessible, so accessible. And then in another breath, hey, let's go somewhere else. Or oh, California's so expensive. At that point, I was already making well into the single six figures. And this girl did not want to hear it. And I think at one point she actually talked to me. She's like, "Hey, she's like, we don't make a lot of money down here, and I really like you, but it's really turning me off. Don't talk about money stuff." Also, in general, don't talk about money stuff, especially if she asks you for money. Every now and then, I'll have girls that I've been seeing on the regular. They'll ask me for money, and it's never much, but I always tell them like, I'm not a bank, I'm not an ATM. If you need money, I'll refer you to someone that can give you a microloan. Microloans are pretty big in a lot of other countries, and we can do it that way. And almost always she's like, oh, no, 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 oh, you're so cheap, you're so cheap. And then you just cut them off at that point, because
Mm.
that indicates to you that she doesn't like you for you. And for me, that's a really big thing. I think that's where a lot
Would
of guys
you
fail.
would you take care of her if she was like a regular or long-term girl that's in your frame and a compliment to your life? Like, would you throw her a couple of bucks?
No, because the girls that are in my life longer term, they usually start getting other areas of their life together too. I have a
Mm.
former main girl. She was younger. She was kind of a party girl or whatever. When I lived in San Diego, she was in TJ, and I'd see her at least once a month. But we've gotten close over the years. I've known her for a while now, and she's doing really well. She texted me the other day, and she's like, "Hey, I have like surplus income. What do I do with it? Do I invest? Do I do this?" She opened a yoga studio and launched like a nutrition line. She was a bikini and fitness competitor, and she did really well, won a bunch of awards, and now she does some modeling, and she gets gigs up in LA, so she's in California all the time. But she's starting to make really good money based on Mexican standards now. And most of the girls I've dated on the long term, they end up kind of feeding off of that energy that I have, and they get those areas of their life together pretty quick.
Mm.
They're also from higher classes, so there's a class or caste system in a lot of these countries too. In Latin America, it used to be race based. Basically, the more Spanish or European you are, the higher caste you are, the more indigenous or like Afro you are, then you're on the lower class. And you still see that a lot in certain areas of society today too. So usually I date girls that are around my class, social class,
Mm.
political class, whatever that looks like, socioeconomic class. That's what I meant.
As far as the women go, they're generally more feminine. They're not
Oh
as
yeah,
mouthy, I think. Would
they're
you
not as
say that they're
unpleasant.
okay? So they're more pleasant. They're less disagreeable.
Mhm.
Um, they're going to be, from what I understand from our conversation, a little bit more compliant.
They're receptive to male energy, masculine energy. So you'll hear the word, especially where I live, like
So they're
machismo, or
receptive to
that
being
guy's
led.
machista. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So they use the word like machismo here, which is, I guess it'd be equivalent to toxic masculinity. That's kind of the old school Mexican way of doing things. But most of the men here, I'm speaking men, like guys older than me, they still embody that. So most of them come from intact families. The dad's still around. They love their dad. They respect their dad. They have alpha brothers. Or at least more alpha comparatively than the US or Canada, from what I've seen.
Mhm.
And it's really important to look at a girl's inner circle, because if she has grown up from the day she was born to know to respect those strong and powerful men in her life, then
Mhm.
it's going to be a lot easier for you. She's just more receptive to masculine energy. Most of the girls that come over, I don't even ask them. Even if it's the first date, first dates come straight to the house. Second, third date, if I'm vibing her, then we can go out and I'll spend some money. It's not a lot here
Mhm.
with the exchange rate, but she'll come over and she'll start doing dishes and tidying up, and they want to make their presence in your space known. They'll always leave a bunch of stuff behind. I
That you'll
swear they
leave
rip
behind,
their
right?
hair. Yeah, I swear
Yeah.
they rip their hair out in the shower. They've always got hair behind, and the new girl always knows. She's like, "Whose hair is this?" I'm like, "Oh, it's your hair." She's like, "No, it's not." I'm like, you all have the same color hair.
It's all
Like, there's
it's all
not a lot of
black.
blondes here. Yeah, it's all black hair, and there's
Um, so game works the same, if not better there, or does it work worse? Like, what's your take on game there?
I'm not overly gamey, and I never have been. So guys that are in the top 1% or top 10%, I share a lot of screenshots and how I set up my system.
Mm,
I set up a system to screen out girls as fast as possible to only allow those that are genuinely interested in me to come through. And I know that there are some considerations there. I do have perceived higher SMV in this society than I would in the US, but I still do pretty well in the US too. I definitely can't complain there. And I have experience here. I went to school, I went to college down here long before Facebook and social media, before years before smartphones or Tinder. Tinder is still kind of a new thing here. Not everyone's on it, but everyone will try it at some point. Whereas in the US, everyone
mm.
knows what Tinder is. So I do have a unique background in that sense that I went to a really good school here. I learned the culture, I learned the language, and I'm able to make jokes. I'm able to do puns and double entendres. I'm able to talk about politics and history and philosophy in the language. So in general, I naturally attract a higher class of women, which are the
How
women
important
that,
is it to
that I
know the
like.
local language?
Depends on what you're looking for. If you want to just come down and smash real quick and have fun, you can do that. Go to any bar where girls know that foreigners go to. I went out the other night with a couple of American guys, and
How do you
and
find
uh,
those?
the,
Like, where do you get the information on what bars to go to that foreigners know that Americans go to?
Go to the expat groups. You'll see that most of the expats stick to certain neighborhoods. There's like 3 or 4 neighborhoods here in Mexico City where all the expats live.
Mm,
I live in a pretty nice neighborhood too, but it's not known as like the gringo hotspot. There's people from other countries here, Israelis, people from other Latin American countries. It's more where like kind of the higher class people live, whereas the trendy neighborhoods it'd be equivalent to more of like a hipster type neighborhood. So any tourist spots. So if you go to like a Cancun or Vallarta or something like that, then obviously there's going to be bars that cater to the tourism cloud and or crowd and the
mm,
and girls know that. So if you go to a gringo hotspot, the girls are going to be there intentionally looking for gringos. Normally they're not the most attractive or highest class chicks, but coming fresh from the US, especially for guys that have maybe a little bit lower SMB or still have some room where they can improve there, it will be nice. It will be novel. It'll be like, oh my God, these chicks are flirty and they're feminine and they're fun. But a lot of times what the guys don't know is that's their shtick. They probably got a new gringo every weekend because especially here, we are a bit of a status symbol. And that goes back to that whole previous caste system. Usually guys of lighter complexion, the girls want to show you off. They want to put you on the Instagram and they want to be like, oh, look at this foreigner I got.
mm.
And even better than gringos, European guys here. So if it's their choice between me and a European guy, all things being equal, they'll almost always go for the European guy. Although a lot of the European guys aren't that masculine anymore, so a lot of girls I date make fun of them.
Okay. Anything else you got before we kind of switch over and take some Q&A?
Yeah, let me see. I got my notes here. Yeah, in general, they're more traditional, and I was thinking about this in the pre-show. So, in Spanish, the word "to have relations" that refers to physical intimacy. Guys in the know that if you're not having physical intimacy with your girl, you're not in a relationship. They kind of go hand in hand here. But in general, sometimes I'll throw the word relationship around, and guys will be like, "Oh, well, I thought you didn't have a girlfriend." Well, I don't. I don't practice a two-way monogamy type arrangement. I do one-way monogamy. I'll have my main girl, but my main girl is essentially my girlfriend. But in general, and not even just Mexican women, just Mexicans in general, and this is for most of Latin America, they're still largely traditional. They're largely Catholic. That is changing. I'd say they're probably 20, 30 years behind the U.S., at least here in Mexico City. But Mexico City is the most liberal city in the country, too, just because it's a massive cosmopolitan conglomerate. But in general, even all that being said, I've noticed that in general, women can do relationships better. They have better relationships with their coworkers, with their family, with their neighbors, with their community. Everyone knows their neighbors here.
Mm,
And that extends to you. So even if you're just dating, even if it's just a one-time hookup, she knows how to relate with other human beings in a much, much more intimate fashion than your North American counterparts. And for me, that's really nice. I grew up in a culture where it's cold. Literally, people are cold to each other. You don't really say hi to strangers. Oh, how's your day? Good. Okay, cool. Yeah, bye. Here, there's a warmth in the interpersonal relationships, and that's something that I'd never experienced having grown up in the States. That I really enjoy here, and now I'm so accustomed to it. When I go back to the U.S. and I meet a girl, even if she's into me, you can tell she's faking her. You can't feel that genuine feminine energy from her. So I think in general, just they're more feminine here, and that means being receptive to male energy. That means being a little more traditional. They're always made up. So even if she's coming over to spend the night, she'll put her makeup on. They'll take forever to get ready, but there's just little things they do here that they don't do back home, to where when you add these very individual little things up, it makes a world of difference. And a
mm,
lot of times, most guys, when they come here, I've had a handful of guys come and visit, like, dude, I'm moving here. Like, you just can't go back once you've had a taste of something better.
Where do you recommend guys should check out when it comes to like the Latin countries that you've been at? Like, is it Mexico City for you where you're at right now, or do you have any other preferences that you'd recommend guys look at?
If you're new to Latin America, I'd say check out Mexico City. Check out some of the popular neighborhoods like Roma Norte, Condesa, any of those. That's where all the gringos go here. You'll feel like you're still in the U.S., but there will be attractive Latin girls around. If once you start getting more into the language and such, I prefer the more traditional cities. So if it's time for me to settle down and have kids and I decide to raise them down here, it'd likely be Guadalajara. I went to a really good school there and have really strong connections. And it's a large town, but it's weird because you'll run into people all the damn time. You can get yourself caught up pretty quick, and there's much stronger community there. Mexico City's huge. It's like a New York City, so it's a little more of a transient city. Any of your tourist hotspots, you can definitely have fun there, but realize you're going to attract a different class of women. You'll get normal girls at vacation too, but typically if they're higher status in their home city, then they'll want higher status guys abroad too. Just being gringo or just being a foreigner often won't be good enough. Or you'll get like the granola hippie type chicks. So it really depends on what you're looking for. Any of the beach towns. If you live in Southern California, a lot of people are afraid to cross to Tijuana, but Tijuana has some really nice chicks because it's the world's busiest land crossing. A lot of girls from all over Latin America go to Tijuana in hopes of coming to the U.S. So they'll come up and go shopping in San Diego and then head back. So maybe check out your border cities. Not all of them are safe all the time. I know even recently Tijuana had some coordinated cartel attacks, and that was kind of scary for people that were there. But and then deeper into Latin America. So the general rule is the further you go away from the U.S. border into Latin America, probably the less English you're going to hear, the more interculturally experienced you're going to need to be, and then you're going to need to know a little bit of Spanish. And then once you go outside the major city centers.
Hey guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that short clip. If you did, consider supporting the creation of content by checking out my supplement line. Pinned in the top comment below of this video in the comments, there's a link to the unpluggedalpha.com/shop. When you click through, you'll be able to land over here, and the entire lineup is broken down by category that it performs best in: estrogen metabolism, fat burning, your foundational essentials for health, immune health, performance, and testosterone support. If you check out with coupon code ALPHA10, you'll get 10% off on your first order. There's also the option to use the subscribe and save model, where regular shipments will be sent over to you on a regular basis, and that gives you a little bit of a discount, and your supplement facts are always broken down over here. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys have an awesome day. And again, check out that link. It's pinned in the top comment below in this video. Peace out.